Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I provide an update on the Lori Vallow Chad Daybell case, including a closer look at their unusual beliefs and a look at the ruling that Lori Vallow is not competent to stand trial? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I'll put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. This is a complex case which is only going to become more complicated as it continues. The challenging part is all the different relationships involved. A lot of people being married, divorced, allegedly being murdered, things like that. I will offer a compressed summary of this case. I have covered this case before in a video where I give the details untangling all of these relationships. Here is the compressed summary. A man named Chad Daybell was born in Utah in 1968. In 1992, Chad married a woman named Tammy. After Chad graduated from college, he started self-publishing fiction books about the apocalypse. He self-published over 25 of these. In 2015, Chad and Tammy moved to Idaho after Chad heard a voice commanding him to do so. Now going back to 1973, 5 years after Chad was born, a woman named Lori Vallow was born in California. She married a number of times. During her third marriage, she had a daughter named Tylee. Her fourth marriage was to a man named Charles Vallow. This is where we get the last name Vallow, Lori Vallow. They adopted a son named Joshua, who they referred to as JJ. So we have Lori and Charles Vallow. They have two children with them, JJ and Tylee. And then on the other side, we have Chad and Tammy. Lori started reading the books that Chad was self-publishing. Apparently, she became obsessed with them. She told Charles that she was no longer interested in being married to him. She also mentioned that she was a deity who was preparing for the second coming of Jesus Christ, and she threatened to kill Charles. There was a lot for Charles to process there. If any one of Lori's statements didn't surprise him, another one was sure to do the job. Charles filed for divorce in February of 2019. He went to a house that Lori rented on July 11, 2019 to pick up JJ and was shot to death by Lori's brother. Her brother said it was self-defense. He would later die as well, so a lot of people dying here. Lori moved with Tylee and JJ to the same town where Chad lived, Rexburg, Idaho. Chad, of course, was still married at that time. On October 19, 2019, Chad's wife Tammy was found dead. Chad would not let an autopsy be performed at that time. He never consented to one, but eventually the authorities became suspicious and they did investigate, and an autopsy was performed. Chad and Lori would marry on November 5, 2019 in Hawaii. Lori had purchased a wedding ring on October 2, 17 days before Tammy's death. Family members started looking for Tylee and JJ in November. Nobody had heard from them in a while. Chad and Lori flew to Hawaii in December. Nobody was with them. In February of 2020, Lori was arrested for felony desertion. Chad was arrested in June of 2020 after the remains of Tylee and JJ were found on his property in Idaho. He was charged with felony concealment of evidence. On May 25, 2021, Chad and Lori were charged with first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, and grand theft by deception. 2 days later, Lori was deemed incompetent to stand trial based on a mental health assessment. So now moving to the analysis. First, I'll take a look at the beliefs of Lori and Chad. Chad was involved with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which I will refer to as LDS. Chad and Lori maintained many unusual beliefs, several of which deviate quite a bit from the teachings of LDS. A number of their beliefs are based on the apocalypse, the end of the world, the end times. Chad would say that his fiction books about the apocalypse were based on events he had seen in his own visions. Chad initially claimed that God revealed to him information about the second coming, specifically details about events leading up to it. Chad became a somewhat well-known figure in the LDS prepper communities. So these are people who interpret LDS beliefs to emphasize the apocalypse, and they start preparing for the apocalypse. Essentially, he was appealing to a small group of LDS members who are highly enthusiastic. This is somewhat similar to the Left Behind book series, which primarily appeals to a small group of Protestants who have unusual theological interpretations regarding the apocalypse and a shockingly high tolerance for flawed, predictable, and confused storylines. I'm wondering if Chad read these books, the Left Behind series, and thought to himself, these are horrible, but I can do worse. In this regard, I suppose, Chad was successful. Over time, Chad seemed to expand into more unusual areas like energy, reincarnation, and conspiracy theories. It appears as though Chad found many of his ideas from self-proclaimed visionaries who appealed to the same audience. Eventually, demonology became a part of Chad's beliefs, and by extension, Lori's beliefs. They came to believe that evil spirits attach themselves to people. The demons completely take over the person. They run the show. The person is essentially a robot being manipulated by the demon. To fight these demonic zombies, one must use spiritual weapons. It appears as though Lori believed her children had been possessed by these demons. Chad believed that he could look into people's past lives and figure out if they were light or dark in these incarnations. So, what did they do in their past lives? Were they good or bad? He could figure out if they belonged to the 144,000. This is a group of believers mentioned in the book of Revelation. These would be the light group. The dark group were followers of Satan. Lori believes that she is an immortal. In a previous life, she was married to a prophet warrior important in LDS named Moroni. This prophet would later be an angel that would appear to Joseph Smith, another important figure in LDS. Some reports say that Lori believed she was a reincarnation of Joseph Smith's wife. Maybe she thought she was somehow both Moroni and Joseph Smith's wife. It's not really clear. Either way, Lori believed herself to be a deity preparing for the second coming of Jesus Christ. She was a translated being who cannot taste death, who was sent to lead the 144,000 into the millennium. She received spiritual revelations and visions to help her prepare the chosen to live in the New Jerusalem after the Great War. Apparently, she was supposed to vet these people, so I guess check their apocalypse passports to make sure they didn't expire. Chad had supplied a to-do list to Lori via email. It contained 7 items. Translate ancient records, write a book about the translation process. I guess it's always good to carefully document all your steps. Identify locations in northeast Arizona for white camps. I'm not sure what that means. Presidency of the Church of Firstborn. There's not even a verb in that item, so I don't know what that means either. Help establish the food distribution as the tribulations start. Nothing works up an appetite like the apocalypse. Ordain individuals to translation as the camps begin. So we again see this fascination with translation. And provide supplies to righteous members of families. As far as the lives that Chad and Lori lived in the past, Chad said he had lived 31 different lives on various Earth-like planets. Lori had 21 separate lives. They both had 5 on the planet Earth at the same time. So I don't know if this was coincidence, but they just happened to have these 5 lives together. Chad told Lori that the 2 of them had been married in 7 previous lifetimes. This is like a doomsday cult version of a pickup line, I suppose. The beliefs of Chad and Lori have been referred to by some as a religious delusion. As far as the end of the world, many people who are really into that don't want to wait for it. They don't want to die and then have the end of the world come along, say, a couple thousand years later. They want it to happen when they're alive. They want to be part of the excitement. In order to accomplish this goal, they may take actions to accelerate the apocalypse. Sometimes they are even referred to as accelerationists. They are excitement-seeking. They want to think of themselves as a major part of a big adventure. They do not typically use peaceful means to try to bring about the apocalypse. Rather, they consider and potentially engage in violent activity. This is a group of people who makes a literal interpretation of the phrase, "Stop the world, I want to get off." It may be that Chad and Lori had this mentality. They were ready to begin with the end times. Moving to the last question, what about this ruling indicating that Lori Vallow was not competent to stand trial? Based on the recommendation of a mental health clinician, a judge ruled that Lori was mentally unfit for trial. So what does this mean? The state of Idaho does not have an insanity defense. Therefore, that will not be an option for the trial itself. But of course, to get to the trial, the defendant has to be competent to stand trial. The standard for competency is really just based on two elements. Is the defendant able to understand the court proceedings, and can they assist in their defense? At the time making this video, Lori's trial is on hold, but in the state of Idaho, it is rare that a competency issue will prevent a trial. It can delay it, but realistically, Lori will probably be tried at some point. If she does not become competent, she will stay in a locked facility until she does. So it's the equivalent of a life sentence. The next question is, what did the mental health professionals see that led them to this conclusion? Like, what's going on with Lori that would lead to her being declared unfit for trial? Well, of course, there's no way to know. Nothing's been released about this yet and may never be. But there are a few possibilities. It could be that all those strange beliefs that Lori has are tied to psychosis. Perhaps they really are some type of delusion. It could also be that she's trying to appear as if she's delusional, but she's really not. Running under the assumption for a moment that Lori is guilty, as the state alleges, her actions appear to be deliberate and thought out. We see a number of behaviors specifically designed to escape responsibility. It's not like Lori was involved in killing her children and then immediately confessed or even failed to hide the evidence. There was this whole burying of the bodies and telling people that the children were with somebody else. There were efforts to disguise what really happened. Concealing evidence appears to be a major part of the strategy. It would seem, at first glance anyway, that someone who carries out criminal actions and then conceals the evidence appears to have an understanding of how the world works. She allegedly committed her crimes with intentionality. These were not accidental homicides. She was accused of perpetrating fraud after the alleged homicides. One might then draw the conclusion that a person who could do this would also understand how court proceedings would function. And because they were able to try to escape consequences, they probably know how to assist in their own defense. Delusional thinking alone will not keep Lori Vallow from being tried. The case of Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell is a frightening example of how people can become overcommitted to really unusual beliefs. I will provide more updates as the case moves on. I'm again confident that Lori will go to trial, so there'll be that. At this point, Chad Daybell is facing trial, and nothing seems to be slowing that down specifically. So again, I'll offer updates as the case develops. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be interesting. Thanks for watching.